The moment they activated the machine, a deep signal pulsed across space. It was not just a simple transmission, it was a ripple, a disturbance that spread through the galaxy like a silent scream. For centuries, the name human had faded into myth. The great empires of the stars believed that they had either vanished or never existed at all. But the K-Wraith did not care for legends. They were conquerors, a race that thrived on war, and they had just found an ancient human ruin on a dead planet. Inside, there was only a single machine, humming with forgotten energy. And a message carved in a language older than their civilization: do not wake them. The K-Wraith scientists scoffed. Superstitions had no place in the age of galactic dominance. Their leader, High Commander Vorthok, ordered the machine to be activated, eager to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden within. The moment the switch was flipped, a tremor ran through the planet, and a pulse shot into the void. It was invisible to the eye, but felt across the stars. Forgotten satellites blinked awake, their ancient circuits reactivating after centuries of silence. Space stations that had been abandoned long ago lit up, their dormant systems booting back to life. And somewhere, deep in the darkness of space, something moved. The K-Wraith fleet above the planet received strange readings. Unidentified signals bounced between systems, growing stronger by the second. At first, they dismissed it as interference. But then, the impossible happened. One of their battleships, the Korgoth's Claw, lost all power. No weapons. No shields. No engines. Just nothing. Panic spread through the command decks as one ship after another fell silent, leaving them floating helplessly in space. Then, the deep space scanners detected movement at the edge of the system. Ships. Massive, silent, and unlike anything in the K-Wraith database. High Commander Vorthak's blood ran cold. The ships had no energy signatures, no transmissions, no life signs. It was as if the void itself had taken form and was now staring at them. Then, for the first time in thousands of years, the humans spoke. A single transmission echoed through every ship in the fleet. It was not a greeting. It was not a warning. It was a statement spoken in a voice that was neither human nor machine. Your action has been recorded. Retaliation pending. The K-Wraith were warriors, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Their fleet, the strongest in the sector, was now powerless. But desperation led to foolish decisions. One ship, a cruiser named Bloodfang, fired its weapons at the nearest human warship. The energy blast shot through the void and simply vanished. There was no impact, no explosion, just nothing. And then the retaliation began. The human warship did not fire back. It did not move. It did not need to. A pulse of light flickered across its surface, and Bloodfang ceased to exist. No wreckage. No debris. Just gone. Vorthak watched in horror as the rest of the K-Wraith fleet began to vanish one by one, erased from existence as if they had never been there. Within seconds, the mighty K-Wraith armada was reduced to a handful of survivors. Those who remained received a final message. You were warned. Stand down. Word of the event spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Empires that had ignored the old legends now scrambled to verify the truth. The humans had not disappeared. They had simply chosen to sleep, waiting in the shadows until someone was foolish enough to disturb them. Now, they were awake, and they were watching. The K-Wraith homeworld, once a beacon of war and power, now faced a crisis unlike any before. Their leaders, once proud and unshaken, were now filled with fear. An emergency meeting was called, but before they could even discuss their next move, the humans made theirs. A single human warship arrived in K-Wraith space. Just one. Compared to the Grand K-Wraith fleet, it was nothing. Yet every sensor, every weapon system, every defense grid shut down the moment it appeared. The ship did not attack. It did not need to. A message was sent to every species, every ruler, every warrior in the galaxy. Let us sleep. Do not wake us again. And just like that, the humans vanished once more. The K-Wraith Empire crumbled from within, their people terrified of the silent ghosts that had erased their fleet without a single shot. Other alien races took the warning seriously, erasing human records from their history books, vowing never to disturb them again. But one truth remained, whispered in the darkest corners of the universe. The humans were still out there, still watching, and if the galaxy ever dared to wake them again, there would be no warning. Only silence. Ancient human satellites, thought to be dead, came back to life. For centuries, they had floated in silence, drifting through the cold, empty void of space. Their systems were ancient, their creators long forgotten, yet something had reawakened them. Red lights flickered, dormant circuits hummed to life, and encrypted signals pulsed outward like ripples in a still lake. The galaxy had long believed that humans were gone, just another extinct race swallowed by time. The great empires spoke of them only in whispers, as legends, as ghosts of a war so old that even the victors had erased it from their histories. But when the K-Wraith activated an unknown machine on a dead human world, those legends stopped being myths. They'd awoken something that was never meant to wake again. The K-Wraith were a brutal race, expanding their empire through war and conquest. They had destroyed entire civilizations, crushed resistance without mercy, and laughed at the idea that anything in the galaxy could threaten them. When they discovered a ruined human planet, they saw only an opportunity technology to steal, artifacts to study, and mysteries to unravel. The warnings etched into the walls of the ancient cities meant nothing to them. Do not wake them. They assumed it was a superstition, the desperate plea of a dying species. High Commander Vorthok ordered his team to activate the strange device they found buried beneath the ruins. The moment they did, every scanner, every sensor, every ship in their fleet detected something impossible. A wave of energy pulsed across the system, reaching deep into space, into places no living being had dared to explore. Then, the silence came. Every power source flickered. Communication signals distorted, and one by one, their ships reported strange readings machines, old and rusted, long thought to be inactive, were coming back online. The edges of the galaxy, abandoned human space stations, silent for centuries, powered up. Their dark screens glowed with forgotten data. Deep space listening posts that had been reduced to floating scrap suddenly started transmitting encrypted messages to unknown locations. Across the void, fleets that had never been detected before hidden, waiting, watching, received the signal. The sleeping giants had been disturbed, and they were responding. On the K-Wraith flagship, the crew struggled to make sense of the chaos. Reports flooded in unknown ships were appearing at the edges of their scanners. Not one or two, but entire formations, moving in absolute silence. They emitted no radio chatter, no signals of life, no energy spikes. It was as if the darkness itself had taken form. Then, the first message came. A transmission so simple, yet so terrifying that it sent chills down the spines of every K-Wraith soldier who heard it. Your action has been recorded. Retaliation pending. Panic spread. The K-Wraith were warriors, conquerors, feared across the stars. But for the first time in their existence, they felt something new: helplessness. The alien fleets they had fought before had screamed, begged, resisted. But this enemy? It did nothing. It simply waited. The K-Wraith Council debated their next move, but fear clouded their judgment. Some called for retreat, others demanded an immediate show of strength. In the end, pride won over caution. A K-Wraith battleship locked onto the nearest human warship and fired. The blast of energy tore through space, aimed directly at the silent vessel. It never reached its target. The moment the attack was launched, something happened that no K-Wraith scientist could explain. The energy vanished. It did not explode, did not dissipate, it simply ceased to exist. And then, the real horror began. The human ship did not retaliate with weapons. It did not move, did not fire. Instead, a pulse of energy flickered across its surface, invisible to the naked eye but deadly beyond measure. The attacking K-Wraith battleship, once a symbol of their might, disappeared. No explosion. No debris. No wreckage. It was as if it had never been there. The other ships in the fleet tried to move, to flee, but something held them in place. One by one, they began to vanish, erased from existence by an unseen force. Within seconds, an entire armada was reduced to nothing. Those who survived sent desperate transmissions to the homeworld. The response was immediate. Defense fleets were mobilized, war councils gathered, and the full might of the K-Wraith Empire prepared for war. But before they could strike, a single human warship appeared in orbit above their capital planet. Just one. Compared to the millions of K-Wraith ships, it was a speck of dust. Yet, as soon as it arrived, every defense system, every weapon, every shield in the K-Wraith Empire shut down. Not attacked. Not destroyed. Just turned off. The K-Wraith leaders could only watch in horror as their entire civilization stood frozen, helpless before a single enemy vessel. Then, the final message came. A simple, calm statement broadcasted to every corner of the galaxy. This is your only warning. Let us sleep. Do not wake us again. And just like that, the human warship vanished. The systems returned to normal. The K-Wraith were left alone, shaken, broken, their greatest warriors now afraid of the dark. The rest of the galaxy watched in silence, understanding the truth too late. The humans had never been extinct. They had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. And now, they were awake. No empire dared to speak of them again. Their name was erased from records, their history buried in fear. The great rulers of the stars pretended they had never existed. But in the darkest corners of space, in hushed voices, one warning remained: never wake the humans. Hidden space stations, silent for centuries, suddenly sent out messages. The galaxy had long believed that humanity was gone, nothing more than a ghost race swallowed by the endless void. The great empires spoke of them as legends, a species that had once burned brighter than any other but had vanished without a trace. Their cities lay in ruins, their colonies abandoned, their war machines left to rust in the darkness of space. But when the K-Wraith, a warlike species known for their thirst for conquest, uncovered a lost human world, they did what they always did. They took what they wanted. They ignored the warnings carved into the walls of forgotten cities, dismissed the symbols of caution left behind in the dust. And when they found a strange machine buried beneath the ruins, humming with ancient power, they did not hesitate. They activated it. The moment the machine came to life, the K-Wraith ships detected something strange. A low-frequency pulse spread outward, traveling faster than anything they had ever seen. At first, they assumed it was nothing, just a remnant of dead technology. But then, their long-range sensors picked up something impossible. Across the galaxy, forgotten space stations that had been cold and lifeless for thousands of years began to activate. Their dark screens flickered with long-lost data, their silent halls echoing with the hum of reawakening system. And then, they began to transmit. No1 knew where the signals were going. The K-Wraith, the Zorkesh, the Ulden Dominion, all the great empires listened as the transmissions spread across space like wildfire. The messages were encrypted, their meaning hidden behind layers of security far beyond anything the modern age could decipher. But one thing was clear: someone or something was listening. Deep within the void, where no ships traveled and no colonies survived, old, rusted satellites turned their antennas to the stars. Ancient warships, thought to be nothing more than debris, slowly came to life. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where the void was thick with silence, something woke up. The K-Wraith fleet, still stationed above the ruined human world, received the first response. A simple message, delivered across every frequency in their ships. Your presence has been registered. Retaliation pending. The words were calm, emotionless, yet they carried a weight that sent a chill through even the most battle-hardened warriors. High Commander Vorthak, a leader who had conquered entire civilizations without hesitation, felt something he had never experienced before: fear. He barked orders, demanding scans, searching for the source of the transmission. But there was nothing. No ships. No signs of life. Just the cold, endless void staring back at them. Then the alarms rang. Unidentified objects were appearing at the edges of their scanners, massive structures, drifting just outside their sensor range. No energy signatures. No transmissions. Just shadows in the dark. The K-Wraith ships tried to scan them, to make sense of what they were seeing, but every attempt failed. Their systems were being overridden, their data corrupted. Then, in an instant, one of their warships lost power. The Bloodfang, one of the strongest vessels in the K-Wraith fleet, simply shut down. No weapons. No shields. No communication. Just silence. Panic spread through the fleet. More ships followed, their systems failing one by one. The K-Wraith scrambled to respond, activating their weapons, preparing for battle. But against what? There was nothing to fight. Then, the darkness moved. The unknown structures at the edge of their scanners began to drift closer, slow at first, then faster. The K-Wraith opened fire, unleashing their most powerful weapons. The energy beams streaked through the void and disappeared. Not blocked. Not absorbed. Just erased, as if they had never existed. And then the retaliation came. It was not an attack in the traditional sense. The K-Wraith ships did not explode, did not burn. They simply vanished. One by one, the mighty war fleet of the K-Wraith Empire was erased from existence. The surviving ships, those lucky enough to still function, received one final transmission. "This is your only warning. Let us sleep." Word spread across the galaxy in hours. Empires that had ruled for millennia now trembled in fear. The humans had not vanished. They had not died out. They had simply been waiting. The ancient space stations, the dead satellites, the abandoned warships, they were never abandoned at all. They had been placed there, hidden, sleeping, watching. And when the time came, when someone was foolish enough to disturb them, they had woken up. The K-Wraith homeworld, once the heart of one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, was now silent. No orders came from their leaders. No ships moved from their docks. The great warriors who had once conquered countless worlds now sat frozen in fear, knowing that they had made a mistake that could never be undone. And across the galaxy, in the dark spaces where no light reached, something else returned to sleep. The war machines powered down. The hidden stations stopped transmitting. The ancient satellites went silent once more. But the message remained, passed down in whispers, in secret meetings, in the fearful eyes of rulers who now understood the truth. Never wake the humans. A fleet appeared from nowhere, human warships, moving like ghosts. The Zorkesh Grand Armada, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, had been preparing for an easy victory. The enemy was nothing more than a dying race, scattered survivors of an ancient war, barely worth mentioning in history. The last recorded sighting of a human warship had been over 1,000 years ago, a relic of the past that no one feared anymore. But now, as the Zorkesh fleet floated above the ruined human colony of Tarsus V, something impossible happened. The scanners picked up distortions, flickers of movement in the void, ghostly shadows where there should have been nothing. Before anyone could react, massive warships materialized from the darkness, emerging from the emptiness of space itself. They made no sound, no announcement, no threats. They simply appeared. And for the first time in their long history, the Zorkesh felt something they had never known before: true fear. Admiral Vectol, a commander who had led countless victorious campaigns, stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship. He stared at the strange vessels, their dark hulls reflecting no light, their forms unnatural and terrifying. No known species had technology like this. Ships didn't just appear out of nowhere. There were no hyperspace rifts, no detectable jump signatures, nothing. One moment, space was empty, and the next, the fleet was there. Motionless. Watching? They attacked. Orders were given, weapons locked on, and the first barrage of plasma fire lit up the void. Thousands of energy beams streaked toward the human fleet, only to disappear. Not blocked. Not deflected. Simply gone, erased as if they had never existed. Confusion turned into panic. The Zorkesh fired again, launching their most devastating warheads, but the result was the same. The projectiles vanished before reaching their targets. It was as if reality itself refused to let them touch the human warships. Then the humans moved. They did not fire back. They did not speak. They did not even seem to acknowledge the attack. Instead, they advanced, gliding forward in perfect silence. The Zorkesh ships tried to retreat, but something held them in place. Engines failed. Navigation systems went offline. The mighty Grand Armada, capable of destroying entire planets, was now nothing more than a collection of helpless, floating targets. The human fleet surrounded them, forming a perfect, suffocating sphere. Every escape route was blocked. Every ship was trapped. And then, the first Zorkesh vessel disappeared. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. One by one, ships vanished into the void, erased from existence by an unseen force. Crews screamed, desperate distress signals flooded the communication channels, but nothing stopped it. There was no warning, no pattern. One moment, a ship was there. The next, it was not. Admiral Vectol watched in horror as his fleet was wiped out without a single shot being fired in return. He tried to issue commands, but his voice was lost in the chaos. His officers were paralyzed with terror, their minds unable to comprehend what was happening. Then, the final message came, a transmission sent across every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy. It was calm, cold, absolute. You should have let us sleep. And with that, the last ship in the Zorkesh Grand Armada disappeared. The human fleet lingered for a moment longer. Then, just as suddenly as they had arrived, they faded back into the void. The stars were silent once more. No wreckage remained. No evidence that a battle had ever taken place. The Zorkesh homeworld received no response from their lost armada. Their greatest fleet had been wiped from existence in mere minutes, and no one knew why. Fear spread like wildfire. The rulers of the galaxy, the so-called unchallenged conquerors, now whispered a single name in hushed, terrified voices. Humans. The species they had once believed to be extinct was not only alive, they were something beyond comprehension. And now, the galaxy understood the truth too late. The humans had never been defeated. They had never disappeared. They had simply been waiting, hidden in the shadows, watching from the dark places of the universe. And when they finally returned, they did not need war. They did not need diplomacy. They simply reminded the galaxy of one undeniable fact. The K-Wraith finally realized their mistake. Humans were not dead. They were sleeping, and now they were awake. The first sign of trouble had been small, barely noticeable. A disturbance in the deep space scanners, an unknown frequency pulsing through the void. The K-Wraith, warlords of the galaxy, conquerors of 100 species, dismissed it as meaningless. After all, they had just finished their invasion of the last known human world, a barren and ruined planet that held nothing but the bones of a long-dead civilization. There had been no resistance, no survivors. The humans had been extinct for centuries. Or so they thought. It started with a simple transmission. No encryption, no message, just a signal repeating in an ancient human frequency. The K-Wraith High Command assumed it was nothing more than an echo from the past, a remnant of forgotten technology buried beneath the ruins. But then, their outposts in deep space began to go dark. One by one, entire stations vanished from their sensors, no distress calls, no wreckage, just silence. Patrol fleets sent to investigate never returned. The K-Wraith were masters of war, and yet, for the first time in their history, they were afraid. Then, the nightmares began. Across the K-Wraith homeworld, strange things started happening. The planetary defense systems suffered malfunctions, their satellites drifting out of orbit as if pulled by an unseen force. Communication lines filled with ghostly whispers, voices speaking in a long-dead human language. Engineers working deep in the core stations reported seeing shadows where there were none, figures moving in the darkness. Even the warlords themselves, the brutal leaders of the K-Wraith Dominion, found themselves waking in the middle of the night, heart pounding, feeling as if something ancient was watching them. Then, the fleet arrived. It did not come from hyperspace, did not register on any known scanners. One moment, the void was empty. The next, it was filled with ships, massive, silent, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Black warships, their hulls absorbing all light, moving without sound or signal. The K-Wraith Navy, battle-hardened and unmatched, launched an immediate attack. The sky lit up, with energy fire, missiles streaking toward the human fleet. But nothing hit. The moment the weapons neared the human warships, they simply disappeared, erased from existence. The K-Wraith fleet hesitated for the first time in its history. Their targeting systems failed. Their ships refused to move. A deep, humming vibration spread through their vessels, a sound that grew and grew until it became a deafening roar inside their minds. And then, without warning, the first K-Wraith warship vanished. No explosion. No wreckage. It was simply gone. Then another. And another. One by one, the mighty K-Wraith Navy was erased. Panic spread like wildfire. Warlords barked desperate orders, commanding a full retreat. But there was no escape. The human fleet closed in, their warships gliding forward without firing a single shot. And then the transmission came. A single voice, speaking in perfect K-Wraith dialect, calm and without emotion. "We remember." With those two words, the K-Wraith finally understood. Humanity had never been defeated. They had never gone extinct. They had simply gone silent, waiting in the dark, rebuilding, preparing. And now, they were awake. The last thing the K-Wraith warlords saw before their empire fell was the cold, empty eyes of the human fleet staring back at them. And then, the darkness took them.